Hi there, my name's Dara, and in this video I'm going to show you some basic information you need to know to start making visualizations and dashboards in Zoomdata. Let's get started. So when you start up an instance of Zoomdata, these are the chart styles that come out of the box. So we've got, your standard bar charts, line charts, pie charts, as well as a little more esoteric charts like box plots, floating bubbles, pivot tables, and some geospatial charts. Regardless of what type of chart you're working with, though, Zoomdata is going to draw the data that powers that chart from the same tables of source data. And when it does that, it's going to categorize that source data into one of three categories: attributes, metrics, and time. So attributes are categories used in charts. Essentially, if you've heard of dimensions or groups, attributes are similar. They are essentially a field that carries a bunch of items that you can use to compare against one another or group by them. For example, the airport attribute might have items O'Hare, IAD, Dallas-Fort Worth, and LAX. The airlines attribute might have American, United, Southwest, etc. So if you have a bar chart and you want to group by a set of bars, oftentimes what you're grouping by is actually an attribute. If you have textual data, for example, the color of something, if you have a bunch of rows for widgets you're selling, the color of the widget might be an attribute. You might want to group by how many red widgets were sold versus blue widgets. You see what I mean? So that's if your data is textual and you're not doing processing on it and you want to compare it, oftentimes it's an attribute. Attributes can be numbers as well, but if you have numerical data and you want to do math on it and you want it to drive metrics like the height of the bars in a bar chart, that's not an attribute, that's a metric. A good example of a metric is departure delay in our data set. It's got units, minutes. It goes from 0 all the way to 60 and above if it were delayed more than an hour. It can even go negative for if the plane departs early. Now, this is pretty clearly a metric because we want to do math on it. So we might want to take, for example, the minimum departure delay to see what the earliest plane or least delayed plane was in like a day. Maybe we want to take the max to see like which planes are the most problematic. Maybe we want to take the average and see like over the year which airport had the highest average delay. That'll help us compare different airports and their performance. So if it's numerical and you want to do math on it, some sort of aggregate function, maybe you want to add it to another metric, chances are it's a metric. Looking at that data table from before, now I've highlighted the attributes. You can see airline here, origin airport, destination airport. These are all things you might want to group by, things you might want to do comparisons with. They also all happen to be textual. The next slide's the same thing, but it's got the metrics highlighted. And before I move to it, I'd like you guys to kind of think to yourselves which of these columns would be metrics. I'll give you a few seconds, and once you think you've got your guess figured out, I'll forward the slide. All right, so these are the metrics. So as you can see, there are departure delay, arrival delay, elapsed time, airline delay, air system delay. All of these have units, minutes. All of these are numerical. And all of these are things you might want to do math on. For example, you might want to figure out the average departure delay. Or you might want to figure out which days have the least total airline delay. Or you might want to figure out the flights with the longest elapsed time and see if that matches with the flights with the longest distance. So these are our metrics to the right of our attributes. Now, if you thought that these two columns were metrics, they're actually something slightly different because they do have numbers in them, but these are date and time data. And Zoomdata actually treats time a little differently from attributes and metrics. There are two ways you can use time. One is via the time bar or filters. So this time bar down here will appear on the bottom of most charts. And it'll let you navigate through the time range of your data if your data is time dependent. For example, if this were at the bottom of a chart, you could see that it's looking at all the data between January 1st, 2015 and December 31st, 2015 for scheduled departure. The time bar will also let you, for certain data sources that support this, do real-time streaming so that your data will update in real time, as well as historical data playback. So you can go back and step through historical data as if it were happening in real time or at an accelerated pace. You can change the range of the time being visualized with the time bar as well. One other thing you can do with time is certain charts will allow you to select time as an attribute. For example, let's say you want to compare airline performance for American Airlines, but throughout each month in the year 2015. Well, what you can do is you can actually select time as an attribute. And when you do that, this time granularity picker will appear. And when that appears, it lets you figure out how you want to group by time. So you can, right now, this picture is set on day, but if you were to zoom in, it'd go down to hour, minute, seconds. If you zoom out, it'd go up to weeks, months, years. So for our hypothetical use case, you'd use the zoom out to months. And then what you will see is your bars would have 12 bars, one for each month in 2015. And as always, for more information, you're going to want to look at our knowledge base. The Zoomdata knowledge base has a vast trove of information, all about the different sources that support time bar, all about how time is structured, and even in a whole article about how Zoomdata handles time. And now if we look at that raw data source from before, you can see the time fields highlighted in green here. Now, moving forward, what we're going to do is jump into the platform, and I'm going to take you through some basic visualizations and some basic functionality like sorting and limiting. That's all going to be in the next video. So for now, goodbye, and I'll see you then.